From the Digital Media Center on the campus of Southern Oregon University in Ashland, Oregon. This is Ramping Up Your English, an educational program for intermediate level English language learners. Here's your host for Ramping Up Your English, John Letz.
Welcome to Ramping Up Your English. Ramping Up Your English is for English language learners from all language backgrounds who have already begun the process of learning English as their second language. It's a program for people of all ages. If you're seeking greater English proficiency, this program is designed to help you reach that goal. Ramping Up Your English is a support program for English learners who have already passed the beginning stages of learning English. We take a content-based approach to helping you reach higher English proficiency. We use English to teach English. The theme of our first unit is Trains and Railroads. This is episode 27, segment 1. In our last episode, we began a journey westward aboard a train called the Southwest Chief, running from Chicago to Los Angeles. Here's the second part of that journey.
So this is the New Mexico side. We've passed through the tunnel of Raton Pass from Colorado, and now we're in New Mexico.
This was our second day on the Southwest Chief, entering one of my favorite states, New Mexico.
Yeah, it collapsed something, or maybe just a junk pile. Well, this is different on this side.
And things are frosted up too.
Yeah. We're at over 7,000 feet, right?
You have a big canyon down that way.
This was one of those quiet moments on Amtrak passenger trains. Just the scenery and the rumble of the wheels. At this point, we reached the edge of last year's catastrophic forest fires.
That had those horrible, gut-wrenching fires.
Fire is a natural component of forest ecology. Years of fire suppression caused fuels to build up, resulting in fires so hot they kill the soil in some places. We emerged from the burned out areas to this ranch just outside the fire zone.
I bet they were nervous.
Yeah,
Probably evacuated. Yeah.
Entering the town of Raton, Liz named what she saw from our roomette.
Lions, Texaco products, Texaco station with no service.
Street cleaner.
Melody Lane Motel, AAA approved. Downtown is that away. An old Main Street is this away. Got a little rainbow mural on their building. And hopefully I can get a
Front Street, or Railroad Avenue, which one is that?
Yeah, it probably is called Front Street, huh?
Yeah. And there's the people lining up for the train. Raton.
Raton had a handsome little station that seemed to go perfectly with the landscape surrounding it. Leaving Raton, we rumbled through some of New Mexico's wide open spaces, and then areas with wide spaces between evergreen trees. Don't let the green fool you. This is dry country. All this landscape viewing made us hungry, so we repaired to the dining car for lunch, sharing our table with a couple from Scotland.
Ask me about where we were going to be at.
Of course, yeah.
I see solar panels on one of the roofs.
That might have been what he was telling us.
Store the water in a cistern and then filter it if you need to.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
There's
This is
another
William,
house.
your dining car steward. We're inviting the 2 o'clock dinner reservations. I'm sorry, 2 o'clock lunch reservations.
What did it cost?
2 o'clock lunch reservations
Oh,
to
come
your
on,
dining
man.
car.
Excitement. It's the Southwest Chief heading toward Chicago.
This is the eastbound, northeastbound Southwest Chief.
Approaching Lamy, New Mexico, we saw this old railroad car fixed up as someone's house.
Sorry. Oh, and there's another one coming up.
Don't know if anyone's living in that one.
Maybe that's the one they're going to fix up next.
Yeah.
Now that
Oh,
would be cool.
wooden box car, but it's actually a box car on a flat car.
Yeah.
So that's what boxcar is?
Yeah.
Ah, right, okay.
That's the real old. They don't run those. They haven't run those in years.
Despite its name, the Santa Fe Railroad didn't go to Santa Fe. Passengers bound for the capital get off here at Lamy. It's the same now with Amtrak and the Southwest Chief.
A whole bunch of people getting on here. Yeah, this is how you get to Santa Fe.
The Southwest Chief gave me my first experience of this part of America's Southwest. That was back in 1984. Then as now, I'm enchanted by this unique landscape. It was so unlike anything I'd seen before. Since we were now traveling in April, there would be enough daylight to see this enchanting landscape for many more miles. But first we would stop in Albuquerque. That and more in Part 4 of Amtrak's Southwest Chief. Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English, a support program for intermediate level English learners who want to improve their English proficiency. If that's you, you're in the right place. A note about an update. Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad has agreed to participate in the work to improve the rails on this route, along with federal, state, and regional governments. The future of the Southwest Chief is now brighter than when this video clip was produced. We've done a lot in this program to improve your listening skills. I'll share some ideas on improving your speaking skills when we return. This is a Ramping Up Your English book review. If you've taken an interest in the theme of trains and railroads, you can grow that interest with Trains magazine. This is for the serious rail fan or just anyone who loves trains. Each issue has a main theme, this one about Western steam engines clearing the tracks of snow and ice. Since the featured events were for photographers, there are incredible pictures in this special winter and holiday issue. This issue also features Union Station in Kansas City, a beautifully remodeled historic train station served by Amtrak Southwest Chief during its nighttime run between Chicago and Los Angeles. Trains magazine is also a good source of finding railroad museums closest to your home. If you want to know more, visit their website. I found my copy at a newsstand and I just couldn't resist buying it. This has been a Ramping Up Your English book review. I'm John Letz. Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English. Our goal is to help you elevate your level of English proficiency in a way that causes the least amount of stress. Our approach is to make English language learning interesting and fun by using a thematic approach. Our first theme is trains and railroads. This is segment 2 of episode 27. Throughout this series, we've addressed 3 of the 4 language modalities: listening, reading, and writing. The 4th modality is speaking, and that's essential to reaching higher levels of proficiency. When I was learning Spanish, I found great value in conversation groups. Now, you may be able to find English conservation groups that you can join in your area. In Southern Oregon, there are conversation groups at the public library in Medford during the evenings. Some groups are available through Parks and Recreation Department or the community education programs from local colleges. If you can join one of these, you'll find your English skills growing in real conversation. There's something almost magical that happens when you take the risk of speaking in the safety of other English learners who are also taking those risks with the second language. If you know of any conversation groups in your area, you can spread the word by sharing on my website, LetzCreate.org. Just click the Contact Us tab to send me an email. I'll gladly share your information with Ramping Up Your English viewers. You can also start your own conversation groups, especially if you know other viewers of Ramping Up Your English. Get together and talk about trains, of course. So get some pictures of trains and railroads. I got most of these from old National Geographic issues. Now here we have, for example, a hot wheel. This is going to become the wheel of a train. This is being the manufacturing of it. So you could probably find a lot of things to say about this when you're visiting with your groups. This is one of my favorite pictures, and it can get a lot of conversation going. This is about an old Southern Pacific line near Coos Bay, Oregon. Doesn't run anymore. But even if you don't know any of that, you can describe the train, the colors, maybe identify some of the cars you see on the train. There's also this. Like I said, these are just things that I've cut out of magazines. Here you see some cargo containers that we've talked about on some of the shows. Again, the color of the train, how many locomotives it has, that it's coming out of a tunnel. Those are all things that you're probably capable of talking about, having watched all these programs on Ramping Up Your English. Then we have this. This is a Canadian train, Canadian Pacific. You can talk about the snow, the trees, the rivers. All of these things are things that we've talked about on our show. Here we have a picture of what we call a meet in the jargon of the railroad fans. That's when two trains come together, but thankfully on different tracks. You don't want them coming together on the same track, that's for sure. Now, we started our series with a lot of things from this picture. In other words, steam engines. So you can talk about steam engines, how that's the way it used to be in the world of railroading. Here we have just a really beautiful picture, but you can go from describing the rails into the landscape. So you definitely see some mountain scenery here. You see the rails going off into the distance. You see the blue sky. All of these are just great conversation starters. Have you ever seen anything like this? How long do you think this rail lasts until it gets to that mountain? How do they get across that mountain? All of those are really good things to talk about. Now here we see these trains, these European trains, which one of our crew recognizes from France. So in your conversation group, you could talk about trains from different countries. You could talk about the different speeds that these trains go. You can, if you haven't had experience with these, you could talk about your desire. What countries would you go to go on the high-speed trains? What about high-speed trains in the United States? You could make predictions. Do you think these are going to become part of our landscape of railroads here in the United States? You might even know of some of the plans to have high-speed trains. So lots of things that can get a conversation going. Speaking of conversations, a conversation group can go for anywhere from a few minutes to half hour or an hour. You'll find the time goes pretty quickly. Speaking of time, I'm curious how long we've been talking about these trains and showing these pictures, and in regards to how much time I have left to do this. And so here we see, again, this is several pictures of trains. Now, you don't have to get real fancy. You could get an old National Geographic magazine like I did. You could also find these just in general purpose magazines. You might be able to find the Train magazine that I had on the the book review. So it's not too hard to get pictures of trains, or if you just want pictures of anything else. A conversation group, the important thing is not the picture. It's just that gets you into talking to each other about things. So they can be things that are going on right now. They can be things that you think are going to happen in the future. You can share your experiences. Maybe you've been near a railroad track when these types of trains have gone by. So all of these, with just a simple picture, can get 20 minutes of talk out of a group, and you'll learn from what the other people are saying. So you'll bring to that group the English that you know. When you hear them describe things or talk about the topic you're talking about, you'll learn, oh, there's a different way to say that, or oh, I've been wondering what the word is for that particular thing. So this is the last picture that I have to share today, but like I said, it's not that hard to get these pictures. You can always watch this program again and see which pictures we have here and just pause it on there. You could talk about, like with this one, the CSX is the railroad that exists now that at one time included the Chessie system, which I've talked about on an earlier program. You could talk about the different cars on this train. You could talk about what kind of cargo this train might be hauling. So there's many different ways that you can spring off of a picture like this and have a really good conversation with your group. Now remember, a conversation group can be as small as 2 people. So begin with the level that you're on and be willing to make mistakes. Now that's the most important thing. Be willing to make mistakes. Then let the content of the picture stretch your speaking ability. You'll have many aha moments, and you'll find your conversation going in all directions. You'll also find yourself looking forward to these meetings. It's just really invigorating to get together with other people. These are times to avoid using your home language and to really dig in for the right way to speak in English. Participation in conversation groups is a great way to ramp up your English, and you'll be amazed at how quickly your English proficiency will grow. Of course, you can also talk about the great train trips we share on this program. We'll have another one of those right after this. There are lots of positive things happening in the world of education in Southern Oregon and Northern California. We spotlight those in a program called Adventures in Education. Adventures in Education looks at positive things happening for our children and for our community in the education world right where we live. Adventures in Education can be seen twice a week, Saturdays at 3:30 p.m. and Thursdays in the evening at 7:30. Join me, please, for Adventures in Education. I'm John Letz. Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English, an educational support program for intermediate level English learners. This is segment 3 of episode 27. The Santa Fe Railroad opened the American Southwest region to rail service, including some notable long-distance passenger trains. There was even a popular song entitled The Atchison, Topeka, and the Santa Fe, which was the formal name of the railroad. Now, one notable train was the Super Chief. Now, it brought Hollywood celebrities back east, so it was called the Train of the Stars, and lucky passengers into the iconic Western landscape. Amtrak named the train on this route the Southwest Chief. It carried Liz and me through some outstanding scenery. Here's part 3 of that journey. This was still day 1 of Amtrak Southwest Chief, rolling through small towns in Illinois. We were headed to Galesville. The open country of rural Illinois was a relief from the densely packed housing of the city.
Really? Oh.
Besides having trouble with remembering numbers.
Galesburg. So this is where we'll start a different track than the one we came through before.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Crossing the Mississippi River reminded us of how special this train is. We're on the old Santa Fe rails from Chicago to Los Angeles. Santa Fe's Chief was known as the Train of the Stars, since so many Hollywood actors used these rails to travel back east. Crossing the wide Mississippi was the same as going west at one time. We would see a gradual change in the landscape as we shared dinner and conversation in the diner with fellow passengers.
Probably white egrets out there. That's wild.
There's alligators as well.
Those are logs.
Oh, it's logs.
Yeah. You can try and tell people.
On the other side of the bridge, we came out in Iowa.
They haven't had an accident or injury at this place since my birthday.
Go home safe.
Around the Cardinal.
You know, just every so often it switches itself to video mode.
We were quickly running out of daylight. We would pass through Kansas City with its beautifully remodeled train station, as well as towns in Kansas during the night.
I think they're doing different things to their routes and their...
We awoke to one of the roughest tracks on the Amtrak system. We were in Colorado, pitching and swaying toward New Mexico. Today, these tracks belong to Burlington Northern Santa Fe, and that railroad giant has no desire to improve the tracks. Amtrak is fighting to keep the Southwest Chief in service, but when you don't own the tracks, it's a real uphill fight.
What time zone, James? We are currently on Mountain Time. The correct time now, 7:51. At 7:51 Mountain Time. This train is scheduled to depart Lahona, Colorado at 8:30 Mountain Time. And it will leave on time, with or without you. So please remain on the property. Listen for all boarding announcements. Boarding announcements include the sounding of the engine's whistle. La Junta, Colorado will be next in approximately 8 minutes. La Junta, Colorado will be next.
The tracks branch off here through multiple switches to form the train yard at La Junta, named for the meeting of roads and trails. From here, the Santa Fe Trail splits from the Cimarron Cutoff. We pretty much follow the Santa Fe Trail into New Mexico. Next stop, Trinidad. A battle between Spanish and U.S. settlers occurred here in 1867.
Enjoy the views and sights as we make our way up the Raton Pass and head west towards Raton, New Mexico. We'll talk to you again once we're about 10 minutes away from Raton. Thank you.
We had seen lots of coal trains on this trip. Here was a big pile of coal along the railroad tracks. As we approached Raton Pass, we saw the country grow more rugged. We also saw some intriguing sights, like this old abandoned hotel. Notice the chapel on the hill.
I could say, shoot the engine.
Wow, I'm getting really good stuff being this close.
Notice the Southwest Chief has 3 locomotives pulling up this grade.
I wonder if we're going down there. Or is that another little road or something?
It's the Santa Fe Trail.
You know, he did say something about we'd see the Santa Fe Trail.
The Santa Fe Trail was not primarily an immigrant trail. It was a trade route, leading clearly to what was then Mexico for purposes of trade that was illegal from Mexico's point of view. A major trading post along the trail was Bent's Old Fort, located back in La Junta. There's a great interpretive center there. Nearing Raton Pass, we saw frost on these evergreen trees. Raton Pass is nearly 8,000 feet above sea level. We would enter the tunnel in Colorado and emerge in New Mexico on the Southwest Chief. Welcome back to Ramping Up Your English. You can watch or even download today's episode at archive.org/details/RogueTV. Look on the episode 27 page, as this is episode 27. Now you can see today's program and all Ramping Up Your English episodes at LetzCreate.org. There you'll find information about connecting with the conversation group or starting your own group. You can also watch Ramping Up Your English on a number of cable channels, including Channel 15 on the Ashland Home Network and Channel 182 on Charter Cable in Southern Oregon. I want to thank my volunteer crew, my announcer Bob Ayers, RVTV, and I want to thank you, our viewers. See you next time for Ramping Up Your English. I'm John Letz.
You've been watching Ramping Up Your English, a support program for intermediate level English language learners. Learn more. Visit our website at LetzCreate.org. You can also watch or download today's program at archive.org/details/RogueTV. Join us next time on RVTV Voices for Ramping Up Your English.